Hey, welcome back to Unplayable, your favorite show about our favorite games. We're back with another episode of things to talk about and noises to make in the background. I'm D-House here with Jay. Jay, how you doing?
Oh, the usual. Stank,
Jim.
trash, Jim, what you doing?
Throwing my AirPod case across the room so I don't play with it the entire time. That's me.
Yeah.
Mike, how you doing, bud?
I am pretty good. Been playing
Awesome.
Jedi Survivor this week. It's
Hey.
fantastic. So,
Nerd.
yeah, check it
I
out.
also recently got it and started playing.
It's so good.
That's sweet. I have been moving into our house in Chicagoland. You can see I'm in a brand new space. I've got boxes behind me. I literally just shoved all the boxes that way to my left for the audio listeners just to get this thing up so we could record some content because the content space is demanding. It never quits. So here we are. Unplayable.
Are you
I'm excited
planning
for
to
the
put? Sorry, are you planning to put a TV up right there?
No,
I'm just
the
curious.
previous owners left that, so I'm going to take it down, actually.
You should totally put a TV there, and then you
Yeah,
got
that'd be
like
sweet.
some
We'd have memes in the background.
Yeah, for our podcast, our video.
I can't wait to have that conversation with my wife. I know you designed this room, but my friends think we should have a really cool meme back here.
No, it's just a TV and it says "Believe."
Football is life.
The beauty of a TV is that you can change the image when your wife comes in the room.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, hey, we've had a fun week. How's your week been in gaming? Let's throw it right to old Jimbo, Jim Braden. Jim, well, how's your week in games been?
Weekend games. Oh, man. It's been humbling. I'll say that. So, David, I'm going to soft toss this one to David and knock out of the park. But I went to Taylor Swift this week. It was such a highlight. I loved every second of it. And now I'll let David destroy me on how.
Wait.
rocked.
How was the show?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, Mike. It was magical. Out of this world. 10 out of 10. Everyone should go check out the Eras tour. She just announced her newest album coming out, which is a remake of an old album, but brand new. It's going to be awesome.
Nice.
But I loved it. Had a great time. And I hope you guys stay tuned for the Taylor Swift podcast coming out in a few weeks with Unplayable. Let us know what you want us to talk about.
We actually got her
Zach,
on.
hold on. Zach Bunn and Team Covenant actually did that.
They did, yes.
They actually made a Taylor Swift whole episode.
They
But
did.
that was before Taylor's version. This is now after Taylor's version. So totally different ballgame here.
Yeah, obviously.
A lot of people didn't like that episode. I actually really liked that episode.
I did not listen to it.
I didn't listen to it at all.
And I'm not a Taylor Swift fan at all. Like, I think she's fine. I'm sure she's amazing live, but it was a fun episode.
Well, if Taylor Swift ever comes out with a card game.
Now, if we could get Post Malone, that I would be
There we
hyped
go.
about that.
Yeah.
Well, at least we know he plays card games.
Exactly.
Okay, so clearly Jim doesn't want to talk about it, but earlier this week, before I moved, my old Star Wars Destiny game group put together a little night of Destiny. 8 guys showed up, and we rolled some dice and played a format of Destiny called Smash, which was made by the guys over at Dice Commando, where they basically created like half decks of characters, so you could have like Chewbacca with like a 15 card deck, and it's like pre-made, and then you combine it with another half deck, and you create you smash them together and play some Destiny, which is great because it kind of takes Destiny and basically takes the deck building out of it, and it was awesome. Like, it was an awesome night. Jim, what was your record on the night?
I was 0-4. I'm so sad about it. I'm bad at rolling dice. If there's any sort of RNG, that's why Flesh and Blood is supreme. No, it was so much fun. I just got rolled off the table, and that's okay. But it was just so fun getting everybody back together.
What characters and decks did you guys play?
Oh,
Did
gosh.
did you stick with one the whole night, or did you every game you switched?
I switched every game.
Every game you
Nice.
smashed anew.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
so
say
sick.
I don't remember all of mine, but I did do it was like a Darth Vader pilot version with Hera Syndulla pilot version. It was random. Like we randomly picked character. We would pick 3, and then we'd pick 2 of the 3 to play together.
Nice.
And then actually Landon and I did one where we each picked 3, and then we banned a character on the other side, so they
That's
couldn't
cool.
play
That
with
sounds
like
fun.
the best one. And I think Jim and I did that too, right?
Yeah, we did that twice, and you didn't let me play with Yoda, and then you didn't let me play with Luke Skywalker, and that's why
right.
I was so mad the whole time.
And that, my friends, is
Oh
what earns
my
There we
you
go.
a medal
I'm
in
out.
Star Wars Destiny.
This guy.
I'm out.
For the audio listeners, David is now proudly holding up his top 16 Star Wars Destiny medallion that he won in 2018 when
I've
he
been
getting top
inspired.
eight.
top
I've been
8'd
inspired.
the event.
This
Like
is
a
just going to
tryhard.
hang in the background on the mount from now on. So
I
I'll
don't
just
wanna
put that
be
back
now-
there for the rest of the
Now you
cast.
have to leave that there. Now you can't take that TV mount down.
It's not a TV mount; it's a medal holder.
It
What
is
are you
now a
talking
trophy
about?
rack. Yes.
I have so many of those. You just don't even know. It was so much fun. I actually did go 4-0 on the night, which was or 5-0.
Of course.
I can't
Wow.
remember. But,
You were leaving, so they let you win.
yeah, obviously they were really nice, and they just wanted me to have a good final night. I get it.
No part of me tried to take it easy. I was just so bad.
It would, guys. I really, for all our Jedi Trials double blanks guys out there and girls, I had so much fun rolling those dice. Just that like shuffling of the 2-hand shuffle and hearing. There's like a specific noise that's Destiny dice make that just.
I can hear it right now.
Dude, it's a dopamine hit for sure.
It just hits different, and I loved it. I had so much fun. There were a couple times where like, oh, what's the rule on X, Y, or Z? We're like, I don't know. I don't remember. Just do whatever, and that was really fun. So Destiny Smash, awesome way to turn your Star Wars Destiny collection into a board game. Highly recommend.
That's awesome. We are hopefully going to play some at Gen Con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even my worst combination, Jim made me play Quinlan Voss and Bosk. And those characters are terrible.
Yeah,
And I still beat him. It was great.
I
But
think
I was
that's
like,
the thing,
You
though.
just
is
got to
when
roll
they-
threes.
When they design those decks, is they design it based on how crappy the character is or good the character is, so you get better cards or worse cards.
yeah.
Which is cool.
That's what I was like. I don't think I ever played Quinlan Voss or Bosk when I actually played Destiny, unless maybe in a draft.
I played them in a draft.
But to play it like that, it was super weird. But man, I had a
I
good
don't even
time.
remember Bosk's ability. What is it?
No, I don't either.
When
Is
you
lying
activate
away or
Bosk,
something?
you can move a damage from one of the opposing characters to a different character.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
he did have like thermal detonators and stuff, so I could like spread a bunch of damage out, and then just when I activated Bosk, I was moving damage over to Jim's Jabba. At one point, Jim did have a Jabba and Yoda combination available, so I took away the Yoda because I was like, "You're about to mill me," and I'm not about that life. In fact, Landon was offering to pay for someone's drink if someone milled me over the course of the night.
Nice.
I have a question. I don't want to derail this conversation too much, but who brought the Destiny Smash stuff and how did they store it?
I know how they stored it.
Yeah,
that was our good buddy Landon Dickens.
nice.
Which I think you guys have met him, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he had a couple different ways, essentially, but he basically bought the little tackle boxes.
They're like
And-
photo cases that you can get from like Hobby Lobby or something. And it's like
Yeah,
a big box that has a bunch of them that you slot in. So
Yeah, so
Oh,
he
okay.
had,
I've seen those.
he had some that were like two characters to a box, and some that were 3 characters to a box.
Did he have the upgrade dice and stuff in with the character dice for that deck?
Yes, and
Nice.
he had
Okay,
3D
I'm gonna
printed
have
out.
to.
He had 3D printed out a file for Destiny Smash, that like separated the cards and the dice perfectly in those boxes.
Okay. I'm gonna have to get the details here because I want to do this with my Destiny collection. So
Yeah, actually, there's another way you could do it, the way that I've done it, and I don't have all the ones that he has, but there's like these plastic crayon boxes that are $1 at Walmart, and it fits perfectly like a half deck and all the dice in one box. and they
Sweet.
stack perfectly, which is actually my preferred way to do it, because there were times when we were siphoning through like, oh shoot, I need a character, where is it? And you were looking at dice instead of like the character card. But if you do it in just one little case, then you can look at just the character card and find it better, easier. So the crayon boxes for $1 at Walmart, I think, are the go-to if you're going to play.
That sounds like the way to go. Yeah.
And you get to color, which is great.
Perfect.
What about you, Mike? Jay, anything you guys want to add about your week in gaming?
Did you play anything, Mike?
I jumped the gun and already told people I played Jedi Survivor. I think that is pretty much the only games that we went. Yeah, we did play a day of Lorcana. It was very fun. Still really digging the game. I feel like I really want to see more cards so that we have more toys to play with. But even still playing this old stuff, I really like it. When?
Yeah, when do you think? Do you think they're going to show us more cards?
I don't know, man. If I were them, yes. If I feel like lately they've been less forthcoming than they had been previously. I don't know if it's because people are sort of, busting the cards out on Tabletop Simulator, like some people we know. But
wow, what jerks!
I don't know. I would like to see some more because like they've already sort of opened the floodgates, and now it's just kind of like I want them, but I could see them holding off. Most of the cards until Gen Con.
Mike,
they went from spoiling a card. I went back through their Twitter feed, and they were spoiling a card. It was either 2 days apart, 3 days apart, or 4 days apart that they would spoil another card, and it would be like 2 days they'd spoil one, couple more, like 3 days they spoil one, and they completely stopped after people started playing on Tabletop Simulator and like proxy cards. So I'm wondering if they are not wanting to show more cards because of that. They even went so far as to edit their starter decks for Gamma, and the Gamma decks people were playing with weren't actual like full starter decks. They took cards out and then just made it like
they're
a lot
40
of the cards. Yeah.
Interesting.
So I don't
so
know.
Are they? Do we need to apologize publicly or what?
No. I do think you should support your local game store, and you should buy physical products of the game. We've mentioned this before.
Don't just play on TTS. Don't do it.
Yeah. Like I will buy more Lorcana than probably most people.
Yeah.
Full stop. But
I have to believe that the majority of people who play on TTS are actually some of your biggest buyers of this game.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So I don't understand the argument of like, oh, it's going to kill the purchasing. Like, I just don't believe that.
They may not want to, but I think it's like it's like a legal responsibility. Like if they don't sort of them not releasing spoilers as a result of people playing on Tabletop Simulator, I find a little weird. If that is true, I don't know if that's true. It might not be, but they are, I think, legally obligated to take action against things that are against their sort of IP, or I'm talking about Disney here, because if they don't, then they open themselves up to sort of people taking their IP and doing weird stuff with it that they don't want them to do. So if if you see DMCA claims basically anywhere on the internet, like, and things that seem ridiculous in terms of like action being taken against like tiny creators and stuff like that, like the reason is because they essentially have to. It's kind of a messed up system, but that kind of is what it is.
Yeah. I would love. Someone posted this, but like they were even saying like Ravensburger could post one card a day and still not release the whole set, like before Gen Con happens and everybody knows the whole set.
I am excited though to like hopefully see brand new cards for the first time when we get packs, right? Like how cool would that be?
That would be cool.
Like open packs and see a card for the very first time. Like that is something that I sort of miss in today's world, like where everything gets put on the internet like months in advance, weeks in advance. But it's something that, when I was a kid and I opened Pokemon cards or Magic cards, I had no idea what was in there. And it made it super exciting.
Flesh and Blood is really bad about that. They spoil the entire set before it releases. Like you see every card except for, I mean, even most of the Marvels they show off, but sometimes there are like extended arts that they won't show, and then you can see them once they're open or something. But Other than that, you see the entire set before it comes out, which is kind of bad in my opinion, but it is what it is.
I love it. It helps me understand how much to buy, honestly. Which
That's
maybe
fair.
that's the reason for the
That's fair.
producer not to do it, because then I just buy everything anyways.
Well, Flesh and Blood does a pre-release a week before the set comes out, and when the pre-release happens, then you'll have all the cards available. So I think they should save some, at least like 20%
for the pre-release.
For the pre-release for people to be able to share once you crack it.
Yeah, like even if Ravensburger did like 3 spoilers a week until Gen Con, like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah, they would still have cards left over.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking at this point, what, it's like,
we're like 90 days out probably,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So I mean, that's 27 cards. It's like still like you're leaving half the set out.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And it would, I just think the community needs something to like. You got to keep injecting some kind of like something, you know.
It feels like it's been a bit dry since Gamma, and some of the hype may have died down. I don't know. I definitely think you keep the hype train going.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Based on, this is not related to the actual gameplay of it, but on the collector side, I've been paying attention to like the values of the D23 cards, and they're absolutely wild.
Way up.
Yeah. Even with no news, like Elsa specifically is like popping off. So I think that there is still definitely some hype for the game. I mean, obviously, right? But I agree with you. I think like on the game side, like we all want more stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think you know, we are not a Lorcana podcast, but we've obviously made a lot of YouTube content about Lorcana, and it's just blown up. Like everything we've posted about Disney Lorcana has been like astronomically high, and it just like we put very little. I mean, I say very little. Mike does a lot of editing, so he does a lot of effort. The rest of us do a little bit of effort, and like people are like, yes, like our Discord has been blown up with lots of Lorcana stuff, and so I do think this game is like very hyped. So it'll be interesting. But I would love to see like this, like at least a steady drip of something. And I think it takes very little effort to like keep the community happy right now. So
yeah. Like it basically gives them a chance to like keep in touch with the community every week if they're doing at least like one sort of spoiler each week. It's like kind of like, hey, we're still here. Like pay attention to us still.
Yeah, super random. But I even was looking into like the Villainous board game, which I've never cared about, and I was like, well, same company, same IP. I wonder if this would be a something my wife would get into, so that she'll actually play games with me.
It's
a good game.
It is, but it is not entry level. I think it's a little bit higher.
It's like maybe one step above. Yeah, but if she's played Catan, maybe
that's the only game she plays with me. Catan.
It's not super complicated, but just to kind of give you a lowdown on how the game plays, every character has, whatever character you pick has its own deck, and it has its own win condition, and you're going to be drawing cards and playing these cards to achieve that win condition. So it is a little bit, it could be a little hard to also control the games for everybody if you're the one that's like DMing it, like game master, and you know all the rules. If you don't know all the heroes or characters, villains, and like what their decks do and stuff like that, it's a fun game. Like if you give it a shot, I think you can get it. It's just might be a step above entry level, in my opinion.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Okay, speaking of news, we've got a few different games to cover for our news segment this week. Mike, you're our resident Shatterpoint enthusiast. You've spent the most money on Shatterpoint up to this point.
Is that true? Have you? Nobody else has purchased anything Shatterpoint related?
I plan on pre-ordering, but you've jumped the gun and pre-ordered.
I actually did it. Yes, that is true.
So you've spent more money on this game so far. So tell us all about
That's
Shatterpoint.
Hilarious. I have no idea. I know that there's some Inquisitor thing coming out. There's some Obi-Wan Darth Vader thing coming out that looks pretty cool. That's about all I know about it.
Okay, so this past week was May the 4th, which was obviously big Star Wars news. And Atomic Mass Games, they actually accidentally dropped, this is classic like publisher activity. they accidentally posted an image on their website of something on like May 2nd or May 3rd of the thing they were going to announce on May 4th. And the community, of course, snagged all the pictures, posted it, and then they kind of sheepishly went to Twitter. Were like, well, I guess the news is spoiled, and so we're just going to acknowledge the fact that we goofed. So
At least they did that.
I was like, okay.
I can think of at least one 3-letter acronym named company that would just completely sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
So it was like a panel like Obi-Wan and Darth Vader miniatures fighting from the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and they
It looked
announced
really
that
cool.
actually Lucasfilm Studios or whatever, LFL, worked with Atomic Mass Games before Obi-Wan Kenobi show had even like dropped and this scene had ever been seen. So they give them the details on this like scene so that they could make miniatures for it that could then essentially be for sale this July. So sort of like this, yeah. So I do think it's pretty cool. Yeah.
I saw in the product image, it was like a diorama. It looked like with like almost like little cutouts for like where their bases would go to like set them up in sort of like a scene.
Yeah.
Is that related to the gameplay at all? I don't think it would be, right? It's just kind of like to set it up as a cool sort of like thing on your shelf, maybe.
I think it's just for like
there?
shelf candy. I think is what from what I understand.
That's pretty cool, honestly.
I think the miniatures themselves could be played because it's the same size, whatever. So there I think there's some, but I don't know. The miniatures side of gaming is still a little bit of a foreign world. Even though I played X-Wing for so long, the version I played was like very different than like Atomic Mass Games, their kind of style.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Fair.
But I have been watching a lot of Shatterpoint videos on just like strategies and their, just different things. I'm like, I am excited. There is a game store locally here in the new place I moved that's like, they have a huge Legion community. And it sounds like they're all getting excited about Shatterpoint. So I could see having a community to like go and just like, get some Lukes and some Asajj Ventress and Boba Fett's on a table and go pew pew and have a good time. So,
what more can you ask for?
Yeah. So it does look fun. Flesh and Blood. What do we got in Flesh and Blood? Flesh and Blood players?
I'll take this one. So we got a banned and restricted announcement after the latest Pro Tour. No surprise, in my opinion, that Classic Constructed has 0 changes. I think it's currently a pretty healthy meta. There's a lot of variety in characters that are being played. Heroes are being played. Yes, the top 8 had like 4 Lexis in it, or 3 Lexis and a Azalea, but that's not surprising because we just got a buttload of new support for those heroes that have also been getting support since basically the second set, so they have a very large card pool. I don't think that they're unbeatable. And Oldhim, yes, he won, but only like 20% of the field was Oldhim. So, and there was only 1 in top 8. So meta feels pretty healthy at the moment. Blitz, however, we got a lot of stuff changed. One, Icelander and Oldhim during skirmish season both achieved Living Legend, so they are no longer playable in Blitz, which Blitz might now be my favorite format simply because those 2 heroes are gone. And I don't know if you know how it works, but when a hero Living Legends, they also Living Legend their weapon. So Kraken's Aether Vein and Winter's Wail are gone. And then they moved some cards off of the banned or suspended list. So Drone of Brutality, that has been banned for a long time, and Blitz is now legal. It's basically a card that makes it impossible to be fatigued when you play it. It's a high cost, high attack value card that goes to the bottom of your deck when you played it. They no longer think it's broken, I guess, based on power creep of the game, that it's just in line with everything else that exists. Aether Ice Vein moves back to legal. It was only suspended because Icelander was in the meta. It's not even playable, I don't think, because there are no ice wizards, and it's an ice wizard card, I think. So that's funny. Crown of Seeds, it's an earth card. It's a legendary. They do not put legendaries on the suspended list lightly, but legendary back out. Only other character that can play is Briar, which is fine, and Hypothermia, which I'm happy about because I play Lexi, and that's pretty much it. That's the ban and restricted announcements. Nothing crazy, but it's cool to see some more heroes hit Living Legends. I think that system is really interesting, and there's a lot of space that they can do cool things with it. So there you go.
I do like the I do like the Living Legend strategy of like Flesh and Blood to keep characters under control. I think that's really unique.
Yeah, it's a cool way of doing rotation for sure. It's like rotation without doing quote unquote rotation.
Right, and I don't think what's funny about it is they say that it's not designed for a soft rotation because they bring those characters back. It was more designed to, I don't even know what their argument is, but it feels really good because it can be a way to rotate things out. And some crazy stuff has already happened. Like Starvo came out and hit Living Legend before the next set came out, which is wild. But Starvo was broken and they didn't play test it, and they said that they didn't play test it, which is just stupid, but whatever.
Yeah, it's an easy and fast way to get rid of a character without banning it outright. So when you say that they're going to bring the characters back, do they have exactly the same ability and exactly the same? Like,
so
they
next
don't,
set
right? Probably.
will be the first time
we'll find
happens.
out, right? But there's no way.
It won't have this. It won't be the same hero. It'll be different. Yeah. But what I'm alluding to is that the rotation isn't on the cards. It's on specifically the hero. Yeah. So all of the Shadow Runeblade or all of the Light Illusionists or Ice Guardian, Elemental Guardian cards will be playable forever because they're going to keep a hero of that type around. It's just that hero, specifically their ability, may not be playable.
Sure.
Which I think is a fun way to do it, because now, just because Chain is Living Legend, I don't have a whole bunch of cards that are useless. So
for sure.
There you go.
I like too that it allows players who really want to see a hero eventually hit Living Legend to just like go all in. Like you find the worst hero right now, and it's like by the end of this game, I will make this happen. It's fun, like side quest things that like whole communities have been built around.
That is
there's
very cool.
a huge one around Movia right now where it's like everyone's trying to push that hero, and it's just bad. It really is.
Another really fun aspect of it is that you leave your mark on the game because they have a list of gym users that contributed Living Legend points to that hero.
Oh, that's cool.
So like you will always be able to go back to that hero on their website and see your name as someone who contributed to their Living Legend status.
That's awesome, actually. Like it brings it like turns sort of the concept of, I'm going to say rotation, into something that like brings the community together in like a bunch of really interesting ways, and sort of leverages like, I don't know, people's relationship with the game in different ways than you normally see. It normally just be like, okay, after 2 years, this is going to happen. But because of the way that they are, designed it, like you get a scenario like this where people are going to rally around the worst hero to try and like, make something cool happen. So like it allows for more interesting like narratives and stories to happen around the game itself, which I think is very, very smart.
Like if game studios are not paying attention to how LSS does organized play, they really need to tune in, because I feel like they just get it. They get what brings a community together. They get what creates conversation outside of the game. And like, even for me as someone who like, I don't feel compelled to like play Flesh and Blood all the time. That's a conversation for a different time. I still watch all the news, and like I pay attention to Living Legend stuff and like what wins what event. Like there's something that like pulls me in, and I think it's just because LSS does such a good job at like building hype around something. And I'm just like, man, if companies could just capture this and recreate it for their games, like, I mean, I don't know what Living Legend status would look like for like Disney Lorcana, for example, as like the next big TCG. But I think stuff like that is like so so cool. Like to be able to acknowledge like some stuff in games is just better, and like how do we make it obvious? Like in KeyForge, they had this like whole power level system in their app where like a deck could reach a certain power level because it just won this massive event. So you couldn't bring this awesome deck to a locals and just destroy a bunch of local noobs because you're like, oh, this is great. Like they created a way to make sure that didn't happen. And so like I'm like, companies need to be figuring this out to like make games like more interesting in the long run.
I think like that's going to lead us into the main topic that we're going to talk about later, which is like what you're talking about is like the game understanding its identity so well that they create all these systems that fit so well with the game and with the community that they're trying to reach. Fab and KeyForge in that scenario, those are both things that those games sort of can uniquely do because of the game that they are. And I do think you're right. Every game needs to sort of like figure out what that is and then come up with the cool ways that they can support that through things that are not just the gameplay itself. So yeah, we'll get into that more later.
So we can just start talking about it by talking about KeyForge's news.
Yeah, so this is our last piece of news, which will bring us into our main topic. But basically, Ghost Galaxy, which is the company that is in charge of KeyForge now, which we've all played on this show, and basically announced like formally the return of organized play because the game was on hiatus as it transferred from FFG to Ghost Galaxy, and now they're releasing new decks. We're all going to start getting our Game Found pledges this month, possibly in the next couple weeks. With like our personalized deck names, which I cannot wait to play.
I hope mine is just terrible. Just terrible. Mine, I put J trash, so it has to be trash.
Oh, incredible.
I'm so excited. I mean, again, one of the unique identity markers of a game, which we can come back to later. But like a lot of the KeyForge community was like, hey, we love that we're getting all these new decks, but we need like a formal place to play these things because there's only so much like kitchen table games that can like keep us going, and so we need something. And finally Ghost Galaxy was like, we got you. And so the Vault Tours are basically their like premier level play, and they announced actually in November of last year, they announced there's going to be 10 in 2023. They announced the first 3 in this article on keyforging.com, and for every Vault Tour there is a $10,000 prize pool, so we're talking cash money prizes. There's a couple of big things for each one. I'm going to mention the first one first, is that each Vault Tour is going to have an Archon and an Alliance tournament, with the top 4 finishers in each tournament receiving cash prizes, and the top 2 finishers in each tournament qualifying for a first round bye in the 2023 KeyForge World Championship in Roseville, Minnesota on November 10th through 12th. The Archon and Alliance tournaments were going to be held simultaneously, so players will need to decide which one to enter prior to the tournament. For those who are unfamiliar with KeyForge, I'll just explain it real quick. Archon means you get your deck, your 36 card deck, and you enter that deck. I shouldn't say you get it. You've already bought this, and you've decided to bring this deck to a tournament. You enter it, and you play with this deck the whole time. Alliance is this way where they're kind of adding Smash Up to KeyForge, where you can combine 3 pods from 3 different decks or 2 different decks and to create one like super deck. It's sort of bringing a little bit of constructed to the game. It's very controversial in the community. Some people hate it. Some people love it. But they are trying to create more agency for the player pool. And so they've announced that at these Vault Tours, there will be simultaneous tournaments happening. Archon, bring a deck. Alliance, combine a deck to play and win some cash at these tournaments. So there's 3 tournaments that are happening. One's in Philadelphia, July 7th through 9th. One's in Minnesota, July 14th through 16th. And then the third one is in Dallas, September 15th through 17th. That is the news. Before we get into the next portion of this conversation, any reactions to the news? Jim, I'll throw it to you.
It's nice to hear some dates start to come up. It feels like this has been this ambiguous KeyForge is coming back for so long, or the campaign is like products are going to come to us at some point. So to actually have here's when it's going to happen is kind of nice. I feel like November feels so close for us to still not have product, though. I'm very interested to see how that looks for actually getting enough players to qualify. But I'm excited just to be playing, or just even to get the wheels turning again for what would I bring to an Archon tournament kind of idea. So I know we talked a little bit about sealed isn't listed in there, and we can definitely delve more into that idea. But I think, just at least giving the community something of, we don't just have to play on random Discord tournaments for the foreseeable future. I think is a great fresh start.
I have questions. So each Vault Tour is 2 tournaments?
Yes. Simultaneous tournaments.
How do you determine which one you want to enter? Just based on like what you feel like playing, I guess, that day, or like which decks you think are the strongest?
Yeah. So that's sort of the internal conversation, all the KeyForge Discords of like, what are you gonna play? And then it's like, well, what are you gonna play? Like, so because there is a level which like some people are like, I don't have a good enough deck to enter into an Archon tournament that could win the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if all the best players in the world are playing their best decks in Archon, maybe I could create an Alliance deck and sneak my way into like the top 4 for the Alliance tournament because all the best players are playing in the other one. So it is kind of splitting the community into like 2 different lanes, and you kind of need to like choose a lane early to figure out what you're doing.
That's super interesting. I feel like you'd split your player base in a way that you maybe don't want to, but are they also splitting the prize pool down the middle between those 2 tournaments, or is it 2 separate 10K prize pools?
I think it's $10,000 for the whole event. So I'm imagining it's an equal 5.
So it's like 5K for each pool, and then the top 4 of each side get to split that.
Top 4 in each tournament. Yeah, receiving cash prizes.
Huh. Okay.
So $5,000 split for 4 people. So yeah. So
I wonder why they went that route versus just like changing the format from event to event. Like you do, Minnesota, Archon, Philadelphia, Alliance, or whatever, and then like everybody's playing the same event. I feel like you'd get a situation where, you go with your friends, maybe you're playing a completely different game than your friends are, and you're on a completely different bracket, and I don't know, I feel like it maybe creates like a separation in the room. I imagine you're all still playing in the same room. I mean, I guess like if there's a player cap number for each side of the event, maybe that gets weird, where like 70 people want to play Archon and only and 50 people want to play the other one, but there's not enough people to play Archon, so then a bunch of other, like, they have to play the format that they don't want to play because they have event space issues. I don't know. Definitely seems interesting. I'm curious to see like how this transpires.
Yeah, for the KeyForge Celebration 2022, they did this kind of similar thing where they did sealed on Friday, and then on Saturday they started Archon and Alliance at the same time. And you had to choose which one you were going to play in. So you couldn't play in both. So I feel like they were kind of test driving this. I do think the studio itself is very small. All they're doing is KeyForge. There's no other games. Like, it's all KeyForge. So we're really only talking like 5 or 6 full-time staff, I think. So I do think they're still figuring things out, but it seems like they're really trying to see if this Alliance idea is going to take off a little bit more. Like, they actually have like a restricted list for the Alliance stuff, so you can't combine certain cards in the restricted list. You talked about the Flesh and Blood, like you can't combine it with other ones. So they're trying to like keep at least some of the degenerate stuff out of it. But a lot of the reaction in the KeyForge community is like, I didn't get into KeyForge to build decks. I got into KeyForge because the idea that I buy one deck and this is it is the thing. So even the numbers, when you looked at the numbers for at least on the Archon side for regular Archon versus like Archon Alliance, like Archon Standard, whatever, most of the players played it in the Archon because that's what we're used to. When it went on the sealed side, though, when sealed was like you get 2 decks and you pick 3 houses from 2 decks to combine to make a deck, the sealed numbers were way higher than the like just standard. You get 1 deck sealed and you play with that the whole time because it's like, if I get a crap sealed deck, this experience sucks. So the numbers were way higher on the sealed side, but on the Archon side were way lower. But in what they've announced, it's all like Archon. There's no sealed at all, which kind of gets us into our main topic that we're talking about, like what is a game's identity and how do publishers react to, like, how do they plan for a game's identity? It's been fascinating to watch this reaction in the community. Be like, if there's no sealed, I don't have good enough decks to show up to these things. I'm not going to pay money to go to these events. Whereas I would pay money to go to these events if it was sealed, because then it's like I could just pull the most amazing deck that's ever been opened in the history of KeyForge and win something. So I'm very, very, very confused why there's no sealed at all, at least announced to this point.
So let's
any of these Vault Tours.
Let's step back for a bit. So what?
Okay.
What do you guys think is KeyForge's identity? Like, what is the sort of promise that you were sold when you first heard about KeyForge?
It's interesting. This goes back way back to the beginning for me, in my opinion, because I feel like Richard Garfield knew so strongly what the identity of this game was, and FFG somewhere along the way muddied it up a little bit. Typical FFG, right? I mean, even from the time that they announced Vault Tours, and back then the prize pool was like really high. It was way more than $10,000. It was a lot, right? And I was just thinking, this doesn't make sense. Like, in my opinion, why are you offering these? I don't know,
cash money tournaments for a sort of
what is supposed to be more of a casual, anybody can play it kind of just kitchen table kind of game, or local and community kind of game. But
so
either way,
just to clarify, you interpreted KeyForge as a kitchen table casual game. That's how you wanted to play it. So the cash tournament, which also, just to be clear, that never happened. Vault Warrior was announced, and then the powers that be at FFG actually killed it. That never happened. It's like a whole thing. There's some weird side stories to that whole situation. But from your perspective, you thought, oh, why would you ever do that? Because this is a kitchen table game.
Well, it didn't add up to me simply because they had designed such a interesting and probably like revolutionary system that revolved around KeyForge in your local community, with chains adding to decks and like leveling your deck up and all this kind of stuff that they layered on top of the casual and community focused, like your local community aspect of organized play. And then none of that matters when you go play at a Vault Tour. Like, unless I am misremembering, a deck you bring there, you play like it doesn't have chains, right?
Correct.
So it erases everything that they kind of built this foundation of the game's design on, and then says, hey, you're going to be competing competitively for a lot of money without any of those kind of systems in place. It just didn't make sense to me. I don't know if I'm in the minority with this, but it just felt weird. I don't know about you guys.
I mean, I think I agree with you, but I want to hear what the other guys have to say.
Jim?
I came a little bit late into KeyForge, so I didn't get the initial buzz, I guess, before it actually hit like the local game stores. So in my head, it was always like, yeah, I want to get the best deck, or I want to find that. And so I've always thought of it with that in mind, of the competitive side of it. But I definitely hear what you're saying as far as just the design of the chain system and just the ability to, like, okay, I maybe have this deck that's more powerful than everyone else's, but the game itself is designed in a way that it doesn't feel that bad when I'm like playing somebody who got like just something that just doesn't synergize well at all. Like, eventually they should balance out. So I hear that. I don't know. I think there is just a competitive side to the game as well, of trying to figure out, like, okay, well, I can make these combinations work, even though it's not like totally, fleshed out with the strategy. It still is like powerful, and you're still just trying to figure out like what's the most powerful thing I can do with that setup. So I don't know. I hear it, but I also like still feel like they put a lot of effort into the OP side of things, wanting that to be a big focus as well. for like the more intense players.
Yeah, I'd probably say, yeah, I think this is like one of those weird games where I feel like the casual kitchen table version and the competitive OP version are both extremely important and are both equally valid as like an approach to this game. Where it's like you could just say, hey, we own 3 decks and we play those 3 decks sometimes like a board game, or you could own 300 decks because you're a tryhard and you can join these online leagues in ABR and you can play in these SASCAP events and you can travel all over the country trying to compete and I think both approaches are completely valid in their own unique ways. And like in some ways, I think this is why I struggled with Flesh and Blood, because I feel like I want to be a competitive player, but in reality, my day-to-day life, I'm a casual player. Okay, let's throw a game online when we can, but I can't make it out to a lot of events because I've got 2 young kids and all that. So KeyForge is this weird in between where I'm like, I feel like if I want to be a tryhard and go to a big event, I can practice and like do that. And then I can also just play random sealed stuff and like, let's just open a new deck and let's play and let's see what happens. And,
You're the kind of person though that like you care about like being good at a game and like succeeding at a game, but you also don't let that sort of ruin the joy and the fun of the game. So I feel like, and I think that's like, frankly, like the theme of this entire show is like, we all have our sort of competitive tendencies, but we don't let that get in the way of us having fun. I think like one part of Jade's point that I agree with is sort of like, I mean, people will turn anything competitive, right? There's competitive hot dog eating, but that doesn't mean that like hot dogs are inherently like competitive in their identity. Like I don't know. I don't know that KeyForge is like inherently like meant to be at its essence, like is the best sort of competitive game. I think that like, obviously people really enjoy playing it in that way. And I think that that's great. But I think when we're talking about like the identity of a game and what it is, and when you're talking about KeyForge, you're talking about it's a completely random set of cards, random deck. Every single time you play, it's going to be, every time you play and open a deck and play, it's going to be a completely different experience. I think, at least from what I remember, that's sort of what the vision was that I was sold when the game was first like released. And like, I mean, I really thought that all the stuff with like chains and levels and sort of like that whole system layered on top was really interesting. And I think that there could have been some like really cool ways that they could integrate that into things like Vault Warrior, where it's like, okay, you could only bring decks that have like leveled to whatever level at your local store. And like you sort of turn the entire system into something that feeds from like your local shop into like these big events. And it makes what you do in your local communities matter even more, because then those decks become sort of, like they achieve legendary status. Like I remember like one of the things that I thought would be really cool is like somebody cracks open this deck and it's just like absolutely insane. And like the deck itself becomes sort of like a character in sort of the story of KeyForge. And it's like, you're going to this tournament. You're like, oh, I wonder if I'm going to see, like whatever random deck name, that everybody knows here. And like, how do I go to this big tournament knowing that I'm going to play against that specific deck? Maybe that still exists. I don't know.
So like a microcosm of that, maybe a version of that does exist. That's actually just happened. Like some of the biggest KeyForge non-publisher rules was that a deck just sold about a month ago. And everybody in the competitive KeyForge community knows the deck by the name Pink Fraud because it's won 2 Vault Tours, and it sold for $3,600 on the secondary market.
Nice. So
$3,600.
That means there's obviously some, demand for competitive KeyForge, right? Like if someone's willing to pay $3,600 for a deck, that they probably have to win multiple Vault Tours to make their money back on. Like
it was 2 guys winning on it together, but
okay,
but
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, same concept. It's like, okay, there's a deck that everybody knows just by the name Pink Fraud. It's like, oh, that's it. Or after a deck like wins an event, it's like there's like a short name for it that like comes up, and it's like, oh, that's that deck. like gasoline. Like gasoline, I know what gasoline means because it won, won a Vulture. So there are some like kind of legends that come out of the game from the competitive side that like, oh, that's that deck. So I do think there's some story element to it, but it's more like inner community, not like the lore or like from that side.
Well, yeah, it's more also focused on the high level events and less like, okay, this deck like really grinded its way up to the top, and now they're sort of competing with these like, you know, other level 10 decks. I don't remember what the level system is, but like, you know, whatever the highest level deck is, like the threshold, you know, it made it can now compete in these crazy events. I understand why they didn't do it that way, because, you know, all of a sudden now everybody has to have a deck of that level, and they can't enter the event if they don't have a deck of that level when they go to a big event like that. But like, I think you know, that may not be a bad thing necessarily. It could be sort of like the sort of invitational element of like a world championship or like a, you know, big sort of KeyForge competitive event, is that you've grinded your way all the way up to sort of this tier of deck and you know, of sort of status, and now you get to compete at this level because you've sort of proven your worth all the way up through your local store. We might be getting a little bit off topic, but I think like it ties in with like what is KeyForge, I guess, and like how do they leverage what is KeyForge to create the coolest sort of version of big flashy, like, you know, big prizes organized play.
Right. So we've got four people on this cast, right? Like two of us, me and Jim, have played a lot more KeyForge recently. We've played in competitive online events. And then Mike and Jay, you guys were interested initially, and then you pulled away for a bit for whatever reason. So I do think we have like a good balance, like kind of approach or mentality toward this. So let me ask you guys this. Because I think we will have a lot of KeyForge players listening to this episode. So, you know, as you hear about these like announcements of like $10,000 prize pool at these events, like you guys are going to Gen Con. If tomorrow, you know, the events get, you know, announced and there's a $10,000 prize pool vault tour at Gen Con, you know, but it is like you got to bring your own deck, like either Archon or like a combined deck, you know, to come and compete. And there's no sealed event. You can't just show up and buy a deck or whatever. Are you interested in playing? Are you know, assuming that it's fairly easy for you to get to the event? Or are you still like, it's just not my jam? Like, and give me your reasons why. Because I really do think the KeyForge community is eager to know the answer to this question.
Mike, you want to go first? You want me to?
Either way, man. I'll let you take this one. I've been talking too much.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I probably played a little bit more than Mike did. I did do a fair amount of local events to get some chains on some of my decks and stuff, won a couple playmats. Until kind of, I think I actually played a fair amount there right before FFG ended it when I lived in Georgia. But yeah, I think one point that we are missing here that we haven't discussed is the fact that they aren't offering sealed, which I think is what you're kind of alluding to here. And there is also one more point that I guess we can get to in a minute, is that the identity has even fluctuated more since it has left FFG and went to Ghost Galaxy, specifically with Alliance format being a thing. But we can talk about that in a minute. Would I play, if I were to play, I would not play Alliance format, even though I was a pretty big advocate when it was first announced. I would probably play Archon if I were to play, but I don't know if I would play it over playing like a Lorcana event or something.
Yeah. I would be more likely to play a sort of like key rackin cooperative sort of event than a 10K like Vault Tour, like sweaty, you know, sort of competitive event. Like I totally understand that appeals to some people. I think for some games it might even appeal to me, but I think for KeyForge, like
if it was sealed, I would play.
If it was sealed, I'd be much more interested in playing for sure. Yeah, just because I think that it's such a fun a fun format, right? And it's like, I know that I'm not going to be able to. Well, number one, I know that I'm not going to be able to bring a deck that could compete. Number two, I know that I don't have the skill or the experience to compete. So if sealed was part of the mix, like sealed is just a fun format to play all the time, in my opinion. Like levels the playing field a little bit. It's like, maybe I'm worse than you at the game, but I opened a deck that's just absolutely cracked. Like it gives me a little bit of a chance. Maybe I open an absolute garbage deck and still have fun because I'm sort of discovering stuff as I go along. So definitely more likely to want to play and be interested in it if it was sealed. But I still think just like fundamentally, like for me personally, like I don't see KeyForge as like a competitive game in that way, like to me. So I don't know. I'd have a hard time like choosing to do that over doing something else that I might find more fun personally.
Yeah. Which leads to misunderstanding what I think is KeyForge's identity, right? Like, why not have a sealed tournament when KeyForge has been so totally targeted and marketed and as a game that is about discovery, and not having a sealed event just feels so anti KeyForge.
That's definitely the one single word that has been used to talk about KeyForge since the beginning was discovery, for sure. So I definitely see that.
Not quote unquote call of discovery for Zach Armstrong out there. I think he's getting way too excited about us if he's listening out there. But discovery in general, I can get or we could call it wormholing into discovery or something.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah,
that's a good word choice. I mean, even as somebody who played pretty competitively, I even look at like an Archon tournament. It's like, I don't think I have a deck that could even go 500 if the top players are going to be showing up with their best of the best. And that's where I think if it would have been like a Winds of Exchange, like Archon tournament, like keep it like set limited. It's just the barrier to entry is just so big right now because there's no rotation that it really, in my opinion, is just appealing to like
the whales,
the tryhard. Yeah, of course, the people who've just invested so much time and money into this game that, again, I've played in competitive events and done okay at them, and I'm still just like, I can't show up to an Archon sealed or like a Alliance event, and I couldn't even start to think of like any of my like decks that, oh man, this house would just be broken, and I can't wait to bring this thing and do really well. So I'd show up and hope to go 2-4 maybe and be excited about that. And it's like, that's not enough for me to want to hop on a plane and go to LAX.
You're 100% right. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think I would ever
had
play
to be LAX.
I never want to go to LAX.
Okay, Miley. Hop on a plane. Okay.
Hey, be careful.
I don't think I can ever confidently play an Archon or Alliance KeyForge game. Like, it just feels in Flesh and Blood, I can just go buy all the cards and make whatever deck I want.
Yeah.
The fact that like this is its best point about KeyForge is that the decks are random. But it's the worst point about wanting to go play a competitive game. Like, I just don't have the amount of decks that other people do. And then if you want to buy a deck, it's like, I guess you could search decks of KeyForge and put in all the cards that you want in a deck, and then pay $1,500 or $1,000 if you want, depending on how much people are paying for it on the secondary market, and get that deck. But then it just feels like I'm not playing KeyForge anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's in such a weird spot.
So sorry, you guys as the KeyForge sort of like players, or the most current KeyForge players, like if they announced a Vault Tour at Gen Con, like how interested are you guys in doing it if there's no sealed event?
So as the resident try-hardist, I'm gonna play. Even if I know I'm not gonna make it, I'm gonna play because I love the community, I love the story, I love the people involved. Like I know by playing in a KeyForge event, I'm gonna have fun because I just know all the people who are gonna be playing in the event. And that's the driver for me. It's not at this point. It's not the game. It's like, okay, like I don't have these like, so SAS is like this kind of third tool third-person tool ranking system for decks. Like, I don't have anything in the 90s. I've got some stuff in the 80s that feels strong enough that I could go to an Archon tournament. I mean, I did. I went to KeyForge Celebration with like our like kind of weirdest combo deck, and I actually did very well. And I went very far in the tournament with this like stupid Saurian key charge deck that Jim and I co-owned. We both bought in together, but we spent a total of $100 with one other person on a deck, not $3,600. And I had a great time, honestly. And like people being like, "That's the coolest combo," because as a Maverick card in the house, it's not supposed to see it. Like it's a thing that like makes KeyForge special, where like I'm the only person at this tournament with this kind of deck with this card in it. And so I'm like, even if I lose, I'm gonna have fun doing it, because if I pull off this combo once in a game, I feel good. And so the fact that I did it and went far, it was like really cool. But yeah, then you get into this conversation of like, okay, then am I going to these vault tours? Am I paying the money for like travel and hotels and all this stuff? Like for me, I'm going to do it because I just love the community. I'm going to drive to Minnesota. It's 6 hours away. Am I going to go to Philadelphia and Dallas? Probably not. That's too expensive for me to bring a deck that I know I'm just going to have fun. Whereas like if they had sealed, I'd be like, dang, like I think I'm a decent enough KeyForge player that I could show up, and if I get lucky enough to pull a couple of decks that I get to choose from, or even Alliance get to combine, like yeah, I would go and compete. Like for sure, I would do that, because like I actually think I have a chance at winning that. But if it's just Archon or Alliance, like it doesn't sing to me, and I'm that's the piece that I'm like, I am thrilled that organized play was announced, but I'm so confused why sealed isn't a part of it when they're literally releasing a brand new set this month that's hitting retail in July, when they're hosting these events. I'm like, why isn't there a sealed event? Or maybe I'm honestly holding my breath and hoping that they're just going to announce it later, and they thought the initial announcement was just like, here's this thing, but there's also this sealed thing that we're going to do that's different with this set, because like I don't want to play any more. I don't want to play any competitive games against this a deck from Call of the Archons, the first set that was released in 2018. Like I just, even if it's a brand new deck, I've seen all those cards. I've done that a million times, and at this point I'm like, I want to play the new set. I want to play Winds of Exchange. I want to open a brand new deck that like still smells like fresh cards and fresh plastic. And I want to sit down across from you. You have no idea what you're doing, and you have no idea what I'm doing. And that's the thrill of KeyForge for me. And so I don't get it. I don't get it.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that before, but like brand new set is coming out. You could have all of these vault tours exist without a single player playing any deck from that new set.
Yeah.
And it's fairly likely that will happen because people already know that the decks that they've been playing with for the last 5 years are sort of the best decks in their collection or whatever.
Like I have a Coda deck that I'm like, if I go to this vault tour in December or sorry, not in December, in July, like I'm probably going to bring this thing because I know how all this stuff works. And I'm like, this gives me my best chance at success overall that I'll probably play. Versus like something brand new. I am finger crossed, like give me my Game Found campaign and let me pull like just the most bananas Winds of Exchange deck that's ever been opened. Like let me pull the lottery, and I hope it's my customized deck name that has D House in it, because that would be hilarious. But I don't know. It just it's I don't understand the no sealed thing. Jim, where are you, bud?
I think even what you were sharing there about you'd go because of the community aspect, I just keep thinking of the word investment. And so whether that's financial investment or time investment, like because you've invested so much time in this game and this community, it feels worthwhile. So you have a reason to go. So in my head, I'm like, well, I would go because I want to compete and want to feel like I have a chance to win. And that's where I haven't put enough investment to make that happen, I guess. So just with how I still stand by it, just with how long the game's been around, the people who have been invested the whole time, it feels worthwhile. It's just, I think it's singing to a very small number of people And if the whole point of revamping this game is to get back into the local stores, like kind of almost start from ground zero, even though we have a good framework for let's keep the good parts of the game, but not the bad parts of the game, it just feels like we're almost just catering to the folks that have been invested since day one, rather than seeing the whole community or even what could be the community.
Yeah.
So I personally don't think I would go unless it was a 3-hour drive or less. And that's just, I know I wouldn't win the tournament.
But
where like other games, it's like I could maybe get the cards and do that. I just know for a fact I wouldn't win with what I have currently.
So, but if there is sealed at these things, would you go?
Absolutely. 100%.
Man, I even like what Mike said, even like a Winds of Exchange only Archon tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be much
definitely
more
more
likely
interesting
to do that. Yeah, 100%. Especially since it's just coming out, so like no one's gonna have the time to grind games with specific, at least not for months at a time.
Yeah, not for the last 5 years.
Yeah, and it, like in my mind, I'm like, it only helps Ghost Galaxy and their like profit margins if they
it's a
say
push
like,
sealed.
hey, like we're gonna do sealed or an Archon only Winds of Exchange thing. When it's like it's available in retailers or you could buy it online at their website if there are retailers and taking it, to say, hey, we're gonna do Winds of Exchange only, and say like, come, let's crown a champion for Winds of Exchange and let's explore this new set. Like, why are we playing decks from 2018? Like I'm like, there is a place for that. I do think there's a place for that. I think World Championships, absolutely. Like in November, which they've already announced World Championships. Like if you're playing Coda, like no shame, but like for Vault Tours, like when we're re-entering or organized play, like
is there cash on the line at World Championships?
Yes, I think it's $50,000, somewhere in there.
Got it.
Let me ask you this: with the takeover from Ghost Galaxy, do you think that they are using this opportunity to shift focus of KeyForge to be even more competitive than it was when FFG had it? Like, is that their goal? Do you think they are targeting more? We want this game to be competitive. We want to have more vault tours and competitive events. Sealed has its place, but it's not for the high level play of KeyForge.
You know, that's a great question. I have had the privilege of like talking to Christian Peterson, who's like the head of studio at Ghost Galaxy. Like he's the one who basically revived KeyForge. I've talked to Michael Hurley, who's basically his second in command. Like I've interviewed these guys for the Wild Wormhole podcast. And quite frankly, I don't know. I don't know what their goal is. I think they've set up the studio to be on the cutting edge of like algorithmically based games where like they do have plans on it. This KeyForge is not Ghost Galaxy's only thing. Like I think it's their current thing. And I think they're in my mind, I feel like they're like using KeyForge as a like testing ground for maybe another algorithmically created game in the future. And maybe that's where we need to go at this point, because KeyForge has had so much like hard things happen to it. So I am confused. Like the most recent announcement is the most confusing piece. Up to this point, I've understood everything that Ghost Galaxy has done. I'd be like, I can understand. I can like rationalize like this, and maybe their rationale is just like, hey, we're putting cash on the line. We're not leaving cash up to chance and like pulling the right sealed deck. Like we feel like that. I could see them being like, oh, that feels just mean to like say, hey, come win cash, and then you get like just crap sealed decks. But I feel like that's why they created Alliance, to like correct that, so you have agency, so you can choose. So I don't know. I don't know what their goal is. I that's probably my biggest question right now, is like, what is their goal for the future of KeyForge?
That would be a good question. I think if you asked Christian Peterson and then asked Richard Garfield what the identity and purpose of KeyForge is, they would have two completely different answers. And I think that might be the problem with what I see as KeyForge's identity issue. Is it was not, especially with our Alliance, the game was not designed from the ground up with Alliance in mind. You can do a restricted list and that will help, but I don't think that it will ever be like what it should be, because it wasn't designed with that in mind. Like, I think the concept is really cool, but I'm only going to do that with my friends. I'm not going to go to a competitive alliance tournament, because there's going to be some degenerate stuff simply because of the way KeyForge is designed. Even without even in Archon, I've watched some top 4s or top 8s of Archon, like Vault or Vault Tours back in the day, and it's like a guy playing like Control the Weak and Restringus and locking someone out for like 4 turns. And it's like, that doesn't even sound fun to me. Like, why would I put myself in a situation to play that?
Yeah. Where I probably push back a little bit is saying, like, if they said it was Archon Alliance in July with Winds of Exchange only.
And you
they
had
said,
to
that
open
would be
those
different.
decks right there.
Yeah. Then it's like, oh, get with your buddies who also, like, pledge for the game and figure out what kind of, like, combinations you could make. And then I would get so excited.
It's that all still goes back to the word discovery, right? It's like, if what you're doing is being asked to come to an event, open a brand new pool of sort of houses for you to choose from, and discover like what's in them, what's the best combination of things that you can put together on the spot, and then how do you play this against your opponent's decks who just did the same thing. That sounds like a lot more fun to me than buy a deck for $3,600 and figure out how to play it.
Exactly, because the second you guys get your Winds of Exchange Game Found Camp like packages, I'd be like, take a picture of every deck, show me every house, like, what can I borrow from you to like get ready for this July Vault Tour so that I can like create this like mega deck for Alliance. That gets me super excited about this. Like, but getting into the old sets, no, I don't know.
Here is a money-making idea for them, okay?
Let's go.
It's a 3-person team. You get 6 decks for your team, and you build 3 decks out of those 6 decks between the whole team.
That sounds fun. That sounds really fun.
That's it right there.
If that was the event at Gen Con, I would do that with you guys 100%. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. We've talked about, like, I think team tournaments are the answer for most organized play to, like, explode in most games.
Yeah.
I still believe that. Team competition. Where is it? Come on.
There's not nearly enough of that in this space. We've definitely already covered that before, but, like, it's so true. It's so true. And, like, what Jay just laid out is, like, such a good use case for that format in a game, and, like, fits so perfectly with, like, KeyForge's identity that it just sounds awesome. I mean, I remember I don't know if this is still a thing, but I remember when I think the World Championships was supposed to be a team event, right?
Yep.
Like that. I mean, that got me hyped, right? It's like the possibility of hanging out with you guys and playing some KeyForge, and probably being the worst player on the team, but still being on the team and playing sounds super fun, right? Like,
you amplify your audience, you amplify your passion. Like, you bring in these guys, like you said, like Mike, like maybe a guy who's like, oh, I don't play KeyForge very often, but then it's like, hey, we need a 3-person team. Mike, will you be our third? And you're like, yeah, because it's gonna lead to like some fun moments. Like, to me, it's like a no brainer. Like the best thing that FFG ever did was try to plan this team world championship, and then it never happened. And I'm so stinking like sad, and I wish. I hope we see that again. I really do.
We could talk about this for hours, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I'm a little passionate about this, but if you couldn't tell. But all right. Any final words? Jim's getting tired. He needs to go to bed. So
still recovering from that Taylor Swift concert, let me tell you.
Final thoughts. Here's your chance. Jay.
Okay, yeah.
Mike.
Okay, fine. No, I want to talk more another time about just like game identity and things that a publisher can do to support a game's identity, because we covered KeyForge a lot, but I think we can talk about how it applies to all the games that we've played. I think it would be pretty interesting to sort of dive in there and see what maybe some upcoming games that we're excited about can do to sort of align the systems around the game with the game's identity. But yeah, I don't really have too much to add on the KeyForge side of things. I think we we all know where we stand at this point.
Yeah.
It's
Bring
good.
back sealed. Bring back sealed.
All I can think is I can't wait to do some webcam games of my D house versus J Trash.
I mean, even if it was Alliance sealed, like I could totally get behind Alliance sealed. I think
Everybody loves Alliance sealed. That's the thing. Everybody does love that.
like,
Every poll they've made has been Alliance sealed is great.
They also make 3 times the amount of money on a sealed tournament, so just do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
Jim, final thoughts.
Excited for it to come back. It's a game that I've spent a lot of time with, so I think once we have new decks in hand, my sentiment will probably change a ton, but we're still kind of in that gray area of we haven't seen it yet. So yeah, it seems like there could be a lot more updates and more things coming our way, so I'm excited to see what Ghost Galaxy brings, because for the most part, they've been knocking it out of the park. So I do trust that they are receiving feedback from the community and taking that into account, which is great.
Yep. Jim, I do expect you to drive to my house in July, and then I do expect us to drive to Minnesota together for the ball tour. So
great, amazing.
It better be in your calendar.
All right.
There was one last thing that we forgot, which is join our Discord channel.
Oh God.
If you've made it
no
this
one
far,
is listening right now.
if you've made it this far in this podcast, you have no excuse then to click the link in the description of this video and join our Discord channel. Join and just berate us about how long we went on about KeyForge at the end of this episode, please.
Hold on. We have been appealing to a Lorcana audience. I'm telling you right now, this episode will blow up and be popular in the KeyForge community, and you will have some KeyForge people popping into our Discord. So
I hope so, because that channel has been a little too quiet. You guys need to come populate
Come
it.
hang.
But I think what's been missing in the KeyForge content world is like Jay and Mike specifically, your perspective as like lapsed players into like this Alliance and sealed conversation. So I think this is going to be very helpful for the community.
Sweet.
Happy to be of service.
My opinion's trash. I can go ahead and tell you that right now. They don't want to hear that.
Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Don't play the unplayable cards. Drop them like it's hot. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.